This morning, we're taking a fresh look at the Bitcoin and Ethereum charts, especially as the fear and greed has been sitting at fear for over the last few weeks here, indicating that the market is in a state of fear at the moment and has actually been pretty fearful ever since last month. But as we close out this week, the month of March pretty soon here, and as well as Q1, it's important to stay level-headed. I'm going to break down why it's still a little too early to panic and why getting too bearish at support could be a mistake, especially with some key levels still holding strong. It's Sunday morning, folks, so be sure to grab yourself a cup of coffee, whether it's hot or ice, or even maybe a mimosa today, because I'm breaking it all down right now. All right, folks, we've stated this multiple times, but I just want to reiterate here that the biggest line in the sand right now for the crypto market, right? We're looking at Bitcoin specifically right now. Obviously, if Bitcoin loses key support and we see a major pullback to the downside, even more than we've already seen, the rest of the market will go with it. On the flip side, and on the contrary, if we're holding key support here for Bitcoin and we continue to see that strength, the market as a whole will see continued strength as well. And that $80,000 area for me is one of the biggest key areas because it is a sizable high time frame average of price. And I refer to this time and time again as similar to a 200-day moving average, but this is a yearly. This is the average price for all of last year. This is a 365-day average that does not move, right? And it's sitting right here. It's known as the yearly pivot, and it is approximately right at about $80,000. So a couple of things here. So another thing that I like to point out a lot of the times are the time-based ranges. So usually at the end of the week, today's Sunday, obviously, we'll see a new range that is going to be set in place for this week. And time again, we'll begin the next week, and usually we'll reverse whatever that trend was. A lot of times when you get a big pump for a week straight or last couple days, even into the end of the week, you usually end up giving all that back and vice versa, because you're coming back and you're running the previous range, you're filling out some of the inefficiency in the market there. Currently, not only do we have a new weekly range setting up for us, but we've got a new monthly range here as well, as we're closing out the month of March pretty much tomorrow. And I wanted to showcase two things here. So one, last couple weeks I've been pointing out that as we're closing the quarter, it was likely that we'd probably just range around in this region here. And what was likely, in my opinion at least, is that we're going to generate new range data, new high time frame averages, all above us, because we've had nothing but pretty much down only as far as the trend would go this whole quarter. And same thing as when we see that on a weekly time scale, where you get a little downtrend or you get an uptrend, you start the new session. So in this case, I'm referring to now the quarter and the new month, where we've seen pretty much just a pullback. A lot of times we'll get a pretty sizable, move back to the upside here. So line in the sand for any more downside, as simple as it can be, $80,000. If you start losing $80,000 daily closing basis, weekly closing basis, a sizable correction is more than likely going to ensue, probably down to $50,000 to $60,000. But until that occurs, once again, can't get too bearish at support. And currently there's three pretty decent support areas coming in all around this region right here. And I'm going to go ahead and showcase. So one being the yearly pivot, which is our high time frame average of price. Let's go ahead and take a look now at the March range. So I'm utilizing a fixed range volume profile tool. This is going to showcase all the volume that's taken place over this time period here. You can use this for time or just structure if you wanted to just take a structural range that you can obviously just notate. But yeah, we're closing out this month here in March. Yesterday we saw a pretty decent pullback to about 81,500, 81,600, right? And just simply looking at this without any news or anything like that that's kind of bogging down any kind of emotion, as an active trader and investor in this market, and that's someone that utilizes these charts every single day, this is a very common and simple move here, right? We're just simply ranging at the moment, and not only just ranging sideways, but we're just ranging throughout the March range, which is about to be set in place here pretty soon. And similar to what I was noting before, is that when we are living down around these lows, now we've just simply rotated this range pretty much before we finish off the month here. It's likely that we'll probably rotate it back up to the high as we begin next month, as long as we're living within this region. Now locally, as we begin the new week, we'll have a little bit more fresher local data here. I did want to point out two things, right, that I said was the current local supports that are all kind of stacking up right around this $80,000 to $82,000, 81, I guess. And really it's that yearly pivot is one. Two is the range low, Okay, so when I'm looking at this fixed range volume profile, you can obviously note that there's volume that's taking place outside of this region I've boxed off. The area that I do have highlighted is known as the value area. So that's where 70% of all the volume takes place. And when looking at this, it's simply put as a fair value. Again, you could consider for the market, almost like looking at this as like an RSI, and that this would be oversold territory, this would be overbought territory, and then you get the deviations, and overall you get the movement within the range. White line that's protruding from the highest volume area here is known as the point of control. This is our natural area that the price action will seek out while within a range. So a lot of times we'll get these ebbs and flows where we rotate up or run it up to the point of control. You'll look to flip that, and then you rotate the range as a whole, and then you'll look for the breakout, right? You either break out to the high, you break out to the low, but until then, it's just a range until it breaks. So here we've got our yearly pivot, high time frame average. We've got our range low for the month of March coming in right around where we almost bottomed out yesterday, around 81,300. And if we were to pull a local golden pocket Fibonacci retracement from the low at 76,000 up to our high of 88,900, you can also see that our gold pocket Fibonacci support comes in around that region as well. So some point after I post this video, probably into the weekly close later tonight and as we begin the week, I actually would imagine we see something along these lines where we actually come down and sweep this last low that we just put in, probably come down and meet this gold pocket, and then we'd look for the reclaim of the range, and then we'd look to move it back up here as we start off in the month of April, because this would more than likely happen into tomorrow. Either way, solid bunch of support coming in just below us here, okay, and that's on a more local monthly time scale that I'm looking at here with the monthly range. And then let's take a look at that quarterly range once again. Reminder that this was actually the last quarter's range that we started off with Q1, the data that we were looking at that time, where we were trading around this region as we began January 1. So this range data is pulling from Q4 of 2024, very relevant for the following session. In this example, once again, the following quarter. So for Q1, this was a very notable area that obviously we have to break things down a little bit more locally, similar to how I'm looking at the market right a moment ago, where I'm looking at a little bit more zoomed in at the March range, and we'll look at some weekly data to kind of just notate what the shorter time frame moves could be that will grow into the higher time frame. And in this case, we had a bearish reversal pattern, came up, took the highs. You're hitting right at the same thing here, right? This is, when looking at this, you couldn't get too bullish at resistance because we had just come up and pretty much just tagged the range high. And then at the end of the day, all we did here was then rotate this range, meaning rotation at this point from high to the low, which was also right there with our yearly pivot. So this was basically what's played out this quarter. Started off Q1, basically just ran the old range. And this is what is shaping up for the current quarter here that will be closing off in a few days here, and we'll be able to utilize this pretty heavily for the next quarter. And at the moment, we're actually trading down below it. So a little deviation here. For me, I've seen this quite often, honestly. So once again, just kind of breaking this down in this, building the trading plan at the moment is that $80,000 needs to hold. We're coming back down in that region now. If you start to creep back up into this region here, $90,000, which I have marked here with a weekly naked point of control, which is a volume target. That's an untapped volume target at the end of the day. So just the key region we'll be looking to. It's just pretty much marking out the range area here at the moment. I believe that's also the high side of our March range we're just looking at. But either way, we'll be looking to hold 80,000. May see that dip once again down to that local gold pocket we were pointing out around 80,300, give or take. Overall, when we close out a quarter like this, and once again everything is going to generate above us, it's just likely that we will see that move up, at least just for a comeback for a lower high. So that's just one thing I've just been hammering on over the last few weeks here. Obviously, it's yet to be seen. We could totally lose $80,000 and just collapse from here. But for me, I'm just keeping level head at the moment, staying pretty patient and looking to see how we do interact once we begin the next quarter and the next month here. Now, if we do come up once again into the range, our natural target is going to be that point of control. It sits up here at about $96,000 to $97,000. This won't change at this point. There's not enough time to really skew the data any more than it is. So this is going to be pretty much set in stone here. You're also going to have a local gold pocket from the overall $110,000 high to our current $76,000 low. Gold pocket resistance at that point will come in here at $97,000 to $98,000. So this is a really big region up here. It's still going to remain. And at the moment, I don't see a reason why we wouldn't push back up towards that. Like I said, the big determining factor on where things start to change is going to be closing daily and weekly candles down below $80,000. But until then, support is holding, and ranging sideways to slightly up is the direction that I'm leaning with. Ethereum's in a similar position as Bitcoin, once again at a high support region. I'm going to take a look at the developing quarterly range here as well. The one that we were just looking at Bitcoin, actually a lot of it is generating up above. For Ethereum, we're sitting actually within it still, but we are at the low. So I just want to point out it's very similar to what we were looking at with Bitcoin as we began January, and same idea goes here. Can't get overly bearish here. There's a level that's just below us. I will note that honestly I'd prefer if we did come down and tag it before any sizable move up, and that does sit at $1,670, but may not see it. So what I have here is the quarterly range here for Ethereum pulled up, just similar to what we just looked at on Bitcoin. So this is actually for Q1 of this year. So January 1st until literally today. This is going to close off tomorrow. And as you can see here, ETH has made its way down, and we are just holding around the range lows here. I did note that there is this one level we front ran when we had this dip down below. I think the low so far is at $1,750 from the March 11th drawdown. And we front ran a pretty big level, in my opinion. It's an untapped quarterly horizontal level of support. It's also a yearly, I'll call it an untapped point of control, right? So that's a high level volume node, and that's for the entire year, for an entire year. So it's a pretty big region, and the two of them line up pretty well, right at 1670, and it's just below the lows. So for me, that's just a big area that if we do poke down and see that, obviously we'd have to gauge the context of the market at that point. We'd want to see probably this region reclaimed for any more upside if that's the case. If the route is we take a little bit more of a drop here before we continue up, that's what I'd be looking for. But aside from that, once again, holding support at the moment, which is sitting here at about $1,800. We have a sizable move, I think, to be had if things really get going here. If Bitcoin does push up into that $90,000 to $96,000 region, I would see Ethereum pushing up probably back to this 2,700. This is a really key level here at the moment, and this is also our 382 Fibonacci retracement as far as to the upside. So it's about 2,600. We have a monthly untapped point of control sitting at $2,700. And then if you look at the volume here also, you can see that while the point of control for the current range is technically now down here, pretty much around where we're at, and you see all this volume coming in here, you can also note this huge volume spike that comes in right here also aligns with that 382, that monthly naked point of control. So that $2,700 is just a really key area here that I've had my eye on for the last few weeks. And assuming we can hold the support here, we get a little bounce. So I'll be looking for that range rotation here also for ETH. Now, that'd be a sizable move to the upside once again. If we did see it, I think that's pushing up into the 40% moves at this point. And if we were to look at the stair step of to look for the signs of strength, once again, 2024 low and the yearly pivot here, this region, I would be really looking to see that start to get reclaimed on a daily closing basis. For anyone that's just listening into that price, it's $1,976 to $2,044. I'd really just say $2,000, right? If we come up and start living above $2,000, would give it that strength that we want to see to continue up towards that $2,700 region. It's a huge move. Once again, 40-45%. So seems like it won't happen at this point, but I will always point out the key moves here, especially when we're at lows, same as when we're at the highs. And for me, the road that is likely at this point would be a bounce higher. Maybe we don't see that move all the way back up to 2,700, but a likely move back up into this region here. Let's take a look at the monthly range as well here for March as we're closing that off, and it can give us a little bit more local price action here to once again start building that trading plan, that strategy for a local move that may grow into a larger move. So this is our March range now that's closing off here tomorrow as well. And once again, looking at this in the sense of smaller local moves that may grow into something larger that maybe takes us up towards that 2,700, we can start to stair step our way here. So currently holding right at the bottom of the March range as well. So you have our quarterly range low here, our monthly range low sitting here as well. So while you're at the low, what do we look for until that breaks? We look for the range rotation. So looking for that move back up towards the upside. At that point, we'd be looking at that $2,000 region, and then we'd look for that reclaim break higher out of this local range. So that sits at about 2,128. And that'll be the confirmation, in my opinion, that we probably would see that next jaunt up, running it towards that 2,700 at that point. So the key takeaway here is that we have a major area that we did front run just below us. I'd be actually pretty interested in this region if we came back down to it. It is at $1,670. Otherwise, currently we're holding pretty decent support at not only a monthly but a quarterly range here for Ethereum, looking to overtake $2,000 for that sign of strength. At that point, we're looking for 2128 for the confirmation of a breakout higher, and then we're looking at that 2700. So those would be the key areas for Ethereum at the moment. All right, folks, that's going to do it for today's update. If you found this video helpful, please be sure to drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our daily uploads here at DataDash. I'll see you all in the next video, and until then, everybody, cheers.